Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here again with Anthony for another video series in the Harry Potter universe and astrology series that we're creating. And today we're going to look at the hypothetical chart of one Hermione Granger. So this will be an interesting video, as was the one we did for Harry's chart. I think Hermione's hypothetical chart has a lot to talk about and whatnot. Anthony, thanks for coming back. And before we get started, I just want to remind people to please hit like and share and check out all the links in the description and whatnot. Just anything you can do to spread this around would be really helpful. So thanks in advance for that. Otherwise, I'm going to share the screen and we're going to get started. Okay, cool. So can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So yeah, I have the chart here with like the outer planets and stuff, and then I have the traditional version of it with the bounds and whatnot. So so yeah, let's I don't know, which one did you want to look at first, like the without the extra planets or with them?
Without,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
That's usually how I like to start too. So
Mhm.
so yeah, just a bit of a background on this. Like originally, Anthony is the one who posted these hypothetical charts in his private Facebook group on astrology, and in this particular instance, he actually had a different time, which placed Mars on the midheaven and gave Libra rising. But I sort of wasn't feeling that, and I told him like I don't see this Mars as being such a huge influence in that way. So he said, well, why don't you try to come up with a different time? And so I came up with this hypothetical time and chart, which is about 2 p.m. Yeah, 2 p.m. Um, but again, using the same place in the UK and the same date that you came up with.
Mm.
And I like this for a few reasons, um, but which we'll just get into. But one of the things I liked about it was that not only is there like a lot of ninth house stuff going on that's like really heavily emphasized in the chart, but we also get Sagittarius rising, which is a fire sign, and we get the Lord in a fire sign and in the whole sign ninth house, but even though it's in the quadrant eighth, which may be something to that we'll talk about more. But I really liked this because it to me it sort of shows like this side of her that maybe accounts for why she was in Gryffindor. And
And
we'll
I definitely prefer this one to my chat.
Oh, okay, good, good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
mentioned that before we started, so that's an important thing as well.
Mm.
Um, the the other aspect of this that I really liked that was sort of just by chance is that the midheaven is at 13 degrees, 13, 14 degrees of Libra, whereas and I'm going to zoom in here a bit actually. Whereas Venus is at 3 degrees Libra, and that's about 11 degrees between them. And so, by the technique of primary directions, it would be a little different, okay? Because it's not exactly 1 degree per primary direction degree or whatever. But at a rough estimate, like Venus and the midheaven would come together around when she was 11 years of age, and that would be the time that not only she started to go to school, but when she really found out that she was a wizard. And that's really important for Hermione. It's important for Harry as well because he didn't know either. But I think it's like even more important for Hermione in a way because she was born to muggles. So she had no idea. There was not even really an inkling of it for her. Whereas at least with Harry, he had this mysterious past. He talked to snakes. He made his hair regrow. He did weird things that wizards end up doing. We don't know Hermione's backstory enough to know if she that happened for her as well, but it seemed like it came as a complete shock to her. And so I really liked that with the midheaven and conjuncting the Lord at about 11 years of age, that's like a powerful symbol of like finding out your destiny. Here it is, here's your destiny. So
Yeah, we would definitely expect to see something like that because that is such a huge transformation. It's a huge life change,
yeah,
completely.
yeah,
Yeah. Even though we're dealing with fantasy, it's still life change for that character.
right,
Yeah. Something that really sticks out to me in this chart is Venus, but Mercury and Jupiter, and that's because we have Mercury, which has just left Virgo, and
yeah,
we have Jupiter, which is close to entering its detriment.
sure.
Yeah. Do you want me to say more about that?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the reason why it re- remains interesting, the reason why I wanted I remember now, I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, if I had the Libra rising, I could have the Lord one in the 12th house using the Placidus house system.
Yeah.
Um, and then I could have Jupiter as the Lord of geniture,
Ah, okay.
so to speak. But here in this chart, it's definitely Venus that's Lord of geniture. But still, it still works because I was thinking of the whole being put into Ravenclaw. She wasn't put into Ravenclaw, but she could have been.
Right.
And there's like, why wasn't she put into Ravenclaw? Because she's clever. She uses her mind and all this. And although you can't read intelligence from a chart, you just can't read it.
Sure.
From where the Mercury is and all this. So even if Mercury is in fall, for example, it doesn't mean the person's going to be stupid because it just
Right.
doesn't work like that. But definitely because Mercury has just left its own sign, when the Sorting Hat was deciding what
Yeah.
house to put, which one would it go for? I mean, okay, so it went for Gryffindor, but why? And I think definitely with Lord One here being Jupiter, and this Jupiter being close to the fixed star Regulus, the
Oh
heart of the
yeah,
lot,
it is. Wow.
it's almost like it's in her to be more Gryffindor than it
Yep.
is to be Ravenclaw, more Mercurial, because this massive drop in dignity in Mercury here. And if she really does play this Mercury, you know, in her life and the way she goes about her studies and always being this sort of know-it-all, she has to be, she has to know everything. Basically, that's her character, and
Yeah.
it's a very insecure thing, and I think it reflects a Mercury that's just left its own sign of Virgo.
That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and what I would like to add to that is, well, I actually first let me ask you too, like, how did you come up with the date of September 19th? Because 1979, we talked about that. Like, she is, it turns out, like a little older than the other characters, right?
yeah, I think she just made it into Harry's first year.
Okay.
Um, yeah, this date I got from J.K. Rowling's Pottermore site. I think it's pottermore.com. I think it is.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
So
So,
it is official. The date is
oh,
official.
wow. Oh, that's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really, really
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know that. So that's that yeah, that just makes me doubly excited. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna sort of pick up from where you left and say that it's so fascinating that she is a little older because, you know, Harry, as we saw in the Harry video, he has Jupiter in Virgo, and presumably everyone else in his year would have Jupiter in Virgo. But Hermione has Jupiter in Leo because she's a little older. So that again points to this like getting into Gryffindor, where it's kind of odd that she's in Gryffindor. It's like she's just barely in Gryffindor because of
Yeah.
because of this Jupiter. Even if she didn't have Sag rising, right? This Jupiter would still be in Leo, and we would still have an indication of the bravery and the lion-like nature needed to be in Gryffindor. This pursuit of truth and justice and that kind of a thing is also, I think, a Gryffindor theme. Um,
Mm.
and we have, like you said, Mercury exiting its sign of exaltation, probably just a few hours, maybe, or even a day or something like that. And that's so fascinating because of everything you said. But I also wanted to say, too, that, like, if you think about Hermione with her studies, she's very she's very book smart, right? She's very much she's good at the things that she can understand by reading about them, right? She's not good at the spell that Harry's good at, the Patronus, right? She's not good
Yeah,
at it at first, right? Because she can't, and she's not good at banishing the Bogart because this is not something you can learn from books. This is something.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
exactly. She knows everything, and yet when it comes to putting it in action, she's not as good as all that. When we see Ginny Weasley being more powerful in action than Hermione Granger, but if there's one subject that Hermione Granger is good at, it's charms, and I think
Charms.
this
Venus.
Mercury
Mercury,
conjunct,
Venus. Yeah.
conjunct a very powerful Venus here.
Very
You know,
perfect. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to know in the book if she exceeds expectations in charms. What grade she got in that subject. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, and we also find that she's not good at divination, right? She really does not like divination.
she
And
she can't stand it. She says
no,
it's
and that's the other thing that she's not good at because you can't learn it by books alone, right?
exactly.
And I always really loved the divination teacher because she is kind of a loon, right? And J.K. Rowling is always playing with this idea that like a lot of divination is bunk, but at the same time, whatever
Yeah,
her name is, Madam, I can't remember her name, but she's most of the time she is right. Like she is right in her predictions. Like when she's shuffling the cards and she gets the seven of swords or something, and she says something like a young
yeah,
man who's like sneaking around. She's looking around. She's like impossible, but Harry's right there. He's
yeah,
under the invisibility cloak. So Hermione doesn't like divination, and she doesn't have the patience for it. She's not naturally gifted at it, and that could be in here in some form or another. I'm not sure exactly where that will be reflected, but maybe we'll discover it as we go on. But what I wanted to say after all of this sidetracking is that Mercury in Virgo is somebody who's not only scholarly but very, very insightful. Virgo is a sign that really contemplates things very deeply and profoundly. Hermione does not contemplate things all that deeply and profoundly. Sometimes she does, occasionally she does, but not like a Mercury in Virgo would. She's more, again, she has all this knowledge and book smarts, but it's a bit more superficial, which is a very Libra air kind of thing. You have
and it's to mask it's an insecurity.
yeah.
It's to mask an insecurity because she is from a Muggle family.
Right, she's from a Muggle family, and she doesn't make friends easily, right? Which is why she's friends with two boys.
Yeah,
Like she's not really very girly for a long time. It takes her a long time to get for that Venus side of her to come out, and it does. I think in book 4 for the first time when she's at the ball with what's his name? Victor Crumb, who himself is a very Saturnic kind of fellow, and we do have a Saturn Sun conjunction here, which could.
She says Crumb's a very physical being. I think that's how she puts it. He's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
choleric guy basically, and he's actually interested in her. Opposites attract, you could say.
Right, but they also describe him as being kind of odd looking, kind of miserly, kind of Saturnic looking fellow, like quiet, keeping to himself. So we do, this Saturn Sun, and of course the Sun can have to do with the husband. Although I don't really see Ron as being too Saturnic, but whatever. These are fictitious charts, so we don't know.
I would definitely say that the moon here pretty much sums up Ronald Weasley, I'd say.
You think so? How come?
Well, because Mercury has a lot of power over this moon, the moon being in Virgo.
Yeah.
And that seems to show the dynamic of their relationship. The moon here is in its phlegmatic phase in an earth sign.
Okay.
So I'd expect a bit of phlegm for someone like Ron.
Yeah, we gotta do
That
Ron's
might be
chart.
confusing for. I'm using terms here that people might not be familiar with. So,
Sure, you're saying, yeah, for those unfamiliar, it's watery, phlegmatic, and earthy, melancholic. Yeah, because Virgo
yeah,
is an earthy, melancholic sign. But yeah,
felt
well,
like a.
we'll have to do Ron's chart at a certain point if we can figure it out. I don't think that's one of the ones that you posted yet, but I'm sure
We
we
didn't
could.
actually do Ron's, but there is a date of birth for Ron.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, we'll figure it out. We'll find it. We'll do it, and maybe it'll make more sense. We could even do a synastry video for Hermione and Ron just for fun, and even
Yeah.
for Harry and Ginny if we can find something for Ginny's date of birth or something. Ginny's definitely an interesting, underrated character. Um,
Mm.
so that would be fun to
It's a
do.
very quiet power Jenny has.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Cool. So yeah, like again, we've got this packed Virgo, packed ninth house symbolism, very obvious for a person who's constantly studying, constantly obsessed with school. And Sagittarius is also a sign that, gives a damn about uh, doing something kind of for the greater good, like participating meaningfully in society on some level. And we also kind of see this theme echoed by Venus being close to the midheaven and ruling the sixth. I think this is a very good symbolism for her obsession with freeing the house elves. The house elves are very much sixth house beings, right? They're basically slaves, so they're
Exactly,
sixth
yeah.
housers, yeah, and they're
That's so fantastic. That's
yeah, they're
fantastic.
magic and they're small. They're very Venus Mercury, I think. Very that fits them very, very well. And so it's just like you just have this like, oh, I really wanna rescue the house elves thing. And in uh
Yeah.
in Indian astrology, it's interesting too, because and the sun are the planets that oftentimes refer to like having some kind of government job. And even though I'm not a fan of Cursed Child, which is the play that came out after the books,
Mm.
Anthony and I were talking about how like Hermione supposedly ends up becoming like Minister of Magic or something like that. So, um, you know, I don't know if this is enough to indicate something like that, but it certainly is good for professional matters, having the 10th Lord in very good dignity, not too far from the 10th, and also being the Lord of Geniture, as you pointed out. But yeah, I just love that house elf thing that comes up with this chart.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Because if Venus is the Lord of Geniture here, that's what her whole nature is geared towards.
Yeah.
Making sure that fairness and justice, and these are really good Venus attributes. And the fact that it rules the sixth house is just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. Another cool thing is how she has the moon also in the bounds of Mercury, and
Mm,
it's trined a lot of spirit also in the bounds of Mercury. So again, really emphasizing this mercurial side of her nature, which is,
mm,
but which is obviously more Venusian because it's with Venus and whatnot. And then the one thing that I couldn't wrap my head around is the north node with the moon, because traditionally I've seen this, or I shouldn't say traditionally, I just, in my own experience, I've seen moon with the north node destroy the mother early on, and same with the sun with the north node. It can destroy the father early on, but we don't have anything like that in Hermione's life. And moon with the north node can also bring a lot of instability to the mind. um so I don't know. This is the one thing that kind of irks me, that like I just don't quite feel it fits. But on the other hand, I don't see Hermione as somebody with a Leo moon or a Cancer moon. I mean,
mm.
and she couldn't anyway because she's born on. I mean, she could have a Leo moon potentially, but it's really between Leo and Virgo. So Um, the one thing I could say about it that maybe is alleviating some of that stuff would be the fact that Jupiter is making an out of sign conjunction with the moon, and the moon, separates from Jupiter, and that also the Lord of Virgo is in very, very good condition. Even though it's combust, I think it's still in good condition because it's with that Venus, So that's kind of my attempt to reconcile that. But I just don't see her as having like a moon north node, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't use the node. I don't use the nodes in that way, so I'll just
Okay.
keep silent about that.
No, you can
But
say how you'd use them. That's fine. I mean,
I wouldn't talk about the nodes here, but definitely the moon here being ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in a hot and moist sign. It's an air sign. This has a lot of power over the moon, and so we have a very mental way of dealing with intuition and the more moony sides of the mind, you could say.
yeah.
Um,
So makes for a good person who studies things, but not necessarily a very intuitive person who's capable of doing something like divination.
yeah, exactly.
Or having the patience for it. I mean, I think Hermione would make an excellent astrologer and card reader and stuff, but she just would need the patience. And she's not patient for that stuff because it's kind of alien to her. On some
well, she
level. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
she was very well. She used a time turner, so it's very sort of taking control of your own fate, trying to fit
Yeah,
everything
Saturn.
into that day. And it's a very Jupiterian thing as well to be able to just fit everything in. We want to do all the subjects. You
Sure.
know, being in two places at once, so to speak. And
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
she wasn't she wasn't, she wasn't very good at limits, was she? And she just stressed herself out a bit here.
Oh, big time. And that's not
Mm.
uncommon at all with Saturn and all that Virgo and all that stuff there the way it is, all the lights and Saturn, North Node coming together. I mean, North Node can make a person very like obsessed with whatever it's touching. So it's in Virgo, and it's with the moon and whatnot. It's like with Saturn too, and the sun widely, but it's just this obsession with these kinds of things, with mastery, with sort of finding oneself, and
Mm.
stretching the limits of the mind. Both the moon and Saturn have a lot to do with time in astrology. And so, yeah, the time turner thing with the North Node does make a lot of sense, especially since North Node can give strange and very outside the box kinds of manifestations of things. So, again, this could actually work well as saying, like, North Node moon, this is again a person who doesn't really fit anywhere easily, right? They're in Gryffindor, but they seem like they should be in Ravenclaw. They are, they have their best friends are two guys,
Mm.
which is not uncommon. I've met plenty of women who have guy friends mostly, but it still is kind of uncommon relative to how a lot of people are in life. Most men and most women, their friends are the same gender and so on, because they just don't know how to have a relationship other than sexual or romantic with members of the opposite sex and whatnot.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty outside the box kind of mentality here, someone who doesn't quite fit and that sort of thing.
And I would say that
Yeah.
Hermione really doesn't have that much time to find herself. Most of her school life is stuck up with Harry Potter and
Yeah.
what Harry Potter's life. Because, I mean, that life in itself must be quite overwhelming if you decide to become that person's friend. So,
That's a good point. Yeah, who is she really? I mean, it's funny because
and she misses her exams, doesn't she? She doesn't go in for exams. So.
when does she miss her? Oh, at the last, yeah, the last
Yeah.
year, right? She does ultimately decide to forego going to school. That
And
must
she
have
has
been
this,
very difficult for her. Yeah.
yeah. And she has this handbag, which is a bit like It's a bit like a Mary Poppins handbag. You can
Oh,
just put
yeah.
anything in this handbag. Put
Yeah,
everything. Very Jupiterian thing, you know.
that's good. Yeah, I like that. That kind of reminds me of the South Node here, in the whole sign fourth house, actually.
Right.
It also the South Node, I mean, it's it's also in the third house too. So we could, we could delineate that, but it's right now the fourth house nature of it is really speaking to me. And perhaps also with Mars ruling the cuspal fourth in the eighth in a water sign, this is a very potent symbol of not fitting into her home. She's a wizard or a witch born into a Muggle family, right? So she leaves the Muggle world that she was born into.
Yeah.
So again, she doesn't really fit in that world either. She's a very curious individual. There's a lot of depth to her character as well. And another thing I'm dying to point out here too is that we've got this fallen Mars in the eighth house, and we've got the Sun in the bounds of Mars and Jupiter in the bounds of Mars. So, and even the lot of fortune in the sign of Mars. This certainly shows like her propensity for kind of erupting in anger, which happens multiple times throughout the series. It's kind of, it's an anger that luckily like cools off. It's like steam, right? It's like really intense, but Mars is in a water sign, so it soon dissipates, luckily, right? And this is also her trepidation, especially in the bounds of Saturn there. This is some of her trepidation about breaking the rules, She doesn't just plunge into danger like Ron and Harry, right? She's like, but what if we get in trouble? Like, what if this leads to, and she has to like do this dance with herself of like, crap, well, I don't want to get out of my comfort zone, but I have to, She keeps secrets too. Like she really does. The time turn, like the lot of fortune in the 12th is somebody who keeps secrets in my experience. Like not good, not bad. It's just, she doesn't tell them about the time turner until she absolutely has to. She doesn't tell them that she's going on a date with Victor Crumb to the ball. Right. And I think there's probably some other things too that she doesn't quite tell.
I don't blame her for doing that though. I don't blame her.
Oh, no, not at all. Like these are perfectly appropriate secrets to keep, like, and whatnot. But it's just very interesting because, especially too with her stuff with Ron, right? She and him go back and forth, kind of passively aggressively for several books, but they're secretly in love with each other. But they just like, she won't say it and he won't say it, and it's just funny because so there's this secretive part of her,
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know, we've said a lot here.
That's a much better chart. I'm glad we chose this chart.
Cool. Yeah, me too. I think it works really well, and it's exciting to see all these odds and ends. So I don't have anything more to say. I think that if we want to, eventually we might come back to some of these and make additional videos, but I think this is good for now. Did you have any final things you wanted to say?
I think the relationship between Hermione and Ron would definitely come into some difficulties, because obviously we know the characters from Hogwarts from their very early days.
Yeah.
But the idea that they also have a life that, in J.K. Rowling's mind, it's a life that's still going on. She's still writing stories, no doubt, just not publishing them. And so if Hermione does become Minister of Magic, well, we would definitely be looking for either Venus here or Jupiter doing that kind of stuff anyway. I find that a very Jupiterian role, Minister for Magic.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and the fact that there's a real push as well to do Jupiter stuff. If you were going to do that, because Jupiter's about to lose the dignity it has in about 2 degrees, maybe less than 2 degrees, in her nature itself, there may be a real drive to do Jupiterian stuff as she becomes an adult and as she finds herself as her own person. And I think this is one of the reasons probably why she had a lot of secrets, is because if you're friends with Harry Potter, how do you individuate yourself? How do you find yourself?
Yeah, that's rough.
He's not an easy person to be around because of who he is.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and he just does things his own way and whatnot. And I think that astrologically, we have a couple interesting things that could show her kind of coming into her own. One of those things would be the Sun and Jupiter conjoining by primary direction, or the Sun aspecting Jupiter by sextile by secondary progression as well. Like these could be times in her life where she sort of comes out, becomes more public and whatnot too. And
Yeah.
I would in a real reading, I would check some other things like the Ferdaria and whatnot. I don't want to go too crazy with that here, but actually, before we sign off, we should have a look at the trans Saturnians real quick, just to see what kind of story they tell, if any. And we've got Neptune rising. So again, this is not really someone who knows themselves easily, who gets caught up in things far beyond
That's right.
what she bargained for. And you know it's just kind of it's an interesting thing that she might have this rising. She also had problems with her appearance, right? Like with her teeth. And at a certain point with that potion they drink in book 2, where she turns into a cat person.
That's very
Very Neptunian kind of thing happening there, right? And it also squares these planets here, which is interesting too. And so again, it sort of emphasizes a non-traditional path in a lot of ways. So,
and also this time turner business. That's another way of accessing that Jupiter in a chart.
sure.
Because also from a writer's perspective, from J.K. Rowling's perspective, it was a nightmare introducing this thing that you can turn back the time with. Because if you can do that, well, you can change anything that you want to.
Yeah.
And the art of writing fantasy is to know your limitations, know where the walls are, so to speak. Because otherwise, it's just, there's no structure to anything. And I think you could have struggled with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And speaking of the time turner thing, Neptune square Saturn, the Lord of Time. Again, it's a good it's another symbol that points to this, aside from the node moon Saturn kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Pluto is conjoined the midheaven, which is really interesting. So, this is another possible thing, suggesting a position of great authority and power in the world, if that's what she decides to do. But these are also in the 11th sign here, and so this is also we didn't talk about this, but this is also like merging profession with friendship potentially as well, or at least public life and actions with friendship, and the themes that kind of follow that. So that's kind of interesting. I don't think, I don't see Hermione as like heavily Pluto influenced. I think the Neptune makes a bit more sense, but then she also has the Uranus conjunct the Lot of Fortune very closely. So, geez, I don't really know exactly what that would be, but one thing it does remind me of is how she fixed her teeth with magic. Yeah, sorry to harp on this teeth thing, but it's just funny. It's always been funny to me because Hermione is not classically pretty, but she is pretty. Like, especially as she matures, and then the way she fixes her teeth, like just like
But it's all very charms based as well, isn't it?
yeah.
And
And yeah,
yeah, it's
Uranus with a lot of fortune too is kind of like a very unexpected twist in your fortune in your life, right? She has to drop out of school with her friends, and she puts her parents into hiding. She puts a memory charm on her parents and all this kind of stuff. So Hermione's always kind of exploring things very outside the box in a Uranian manner,
yeah, definitely. I think yeah, it's like infinity with Uranus there. I think this idea that she can do anything.
Yeah, she could do anything, right?
It's a it's a bit like Jupiter in a way, but it's of its own mythology, Uranus compared to Jupiter. So Yeah, it does interest me because I was wondering before, where are the outer planets? And then I saw that with the Lot of Fortune. Um, it can be divisive, this Uranus as well, it separates you
Sure.
from it being the opposite of Saturn as well. Um, you know, Uranus, the sky god, can take you away from all your troubles and all that. Um, and obviously, when Uranus and Saturn come together, that's the birth of Venus. And Venus is the lord of geniture in her chart. So that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's quite interesting because I mean her yeah, she's I mean there is this more feminine side of her that we don't see till like a little later on, right? She just seems like so nerdy and book
Hmm.
smart, and then she starts to become a bit more I don't know, I guess you could just say womanly, you know.
Definitely, yeah. Um,
And Venus is
although,
occidental too, so it's something that comes out a little later, you know.
yeah, that's an interesting point. And also, it could work for her like that, like you've just said. And also, being a rule of the 10th house as well. Um, mm, that's what I said about, Minister of Magic and
Yeah,
Venus. It could have been Venus or it could be Jupiter, that where she taps into.
sure.
Um, so,
Cool.
yeah. And also, she reads remember, she's the one who's reading the fairy tale, The Deathly Hallows of the
Oh,
Three Brothers.
that's true. Yeah.
And we were talking in the last video about how each outer planet, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, represents one of the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
And I just thought of that on the spot. It's not something I brought to the video beforehand.
Right.
It just came to me. I thought that would be interesting. And
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
rambling on now.
Well, yeah, and it's also interesting how Dumbledore leaves each of them like a couple of objects when he dies, right? Like he leaves Hermione the book, he leaves Ron the I can't remember what it's called, the Flibberty Gibbet thing.
Yeah, the awful. I forgot the name of it.
That's not what it's called, obviously, but it's like that thing
Yeah,
that sucks up lights and then
yeah.
puts
It's like a cigarette lighter.
so cool. Yeah, it's something that Dumbledore invented too. And anyway, and then he leaves Harry the first golden snitch that he ever caught, which he caught in his
Yeah,
mouth, which becomes a key to deciphering its secrets later on. But he also leaves him the Sword of Gryffindor as well. So um, I don't know. Yeah, that might be something we could explore in another video sometime. Those four items. Yeah, that'd be fun. But
yeah.
otherwise, I think we can just wrap it up. You know.
That's right. Yeah, and I think we've done our best on that chart.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in again, and please remember to hit like and subscribe and share this video far and wide, and check out the links in the description below. And
And
other,
please also add your own thoughts as well underneath the video.
yeah, please do. We'd
Yeah.
love to hear what people have to say about all this. So, with that, Anthony, I'll see you next time for another chart.
Yes, I can't wait. It's been really good.
All right, cool. See you guys.
Yeah. See you.